before you go, I know the title of your book is kind of a joke, How to Make White People Laugh. But do you find differences in what makes different audiences laugh that break down along racial or religious or other demographic lines for real?
Yeah, I mean, I've performed all over the country, and I have to be honest, like sometimes, when I've performed in the South, I've gotten, very light chuckles at some of my jokes that are kind of seen or perceived as more liberal. When I remember I performed in Washington State, this is kind of like 2 hours away from Seattle, so like kind of where Twilight was formed. There were probably shape-shifting wolves, who knows. And they also, they protested my show because they thought I was going to convert people to Islam. So I performed in some places, which is hilarious. I would never, I don't know how to. Anyways, where's the ham sandwich? So,
do you think God just got the pork thing wrong? I mean, a lot of Jews think that God got the shrimp thing wrong.
Right.
Like, the whole Bible is, I take it literally, but when you come down to shrimp being not something you could eat, just a lot of Jews just say, God got one wrong.
Yeah. I can't agree. I can't agree with you more. Like, I do think that some of those things, and they're not like necessarily meant to be followed to a T,
So different audiences do laugh at different
audiences
things.
do laugh at different things, and I've gotten, but I one of the best audiences I've ever had in my professional life was in Birmingham, Alabama, and it's so you kind of can't. America is a bird of many feathers. You kind of can't pin it anymore.
Where can people see you?
I am actually embarking on a book tour, so people can see me in D.C. and Boston, Portland, Seattle, Oakland, Austin. All of those things are on howtomakeWhitePeopleLaugh.com, my upcoming events. And then when I'm not on the road, I perform regularly in New York City to the lovely people of New York, and that's the thing I love to do most.
Negin Farsad, author of How to Make White People Laugh. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Kill the rabbit, kill the rabbit.
Kill the rabbit?
Yo-ho, 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 yo-ho.
Almighty warrior of great fighting stock, might I inquire to ask if what's up, Doc?
This, of course, that you're listening to is What's Opera, Doc, the 1957 Bugs Bunny cartoon based on 19th century classical composer Richard Wagner's The Ring Cycle. We read an article last week in the Wall Street Journal by Michael Phillips entitled How Bugs Bunny and Kill the Wabbit Inspired a Generation of Opera Stars. The article interviewed many of the people involved in the Washington National Opera's production of The Ring Cycle, who said that their first exposure to opera came from the same source, Bugs Bunny cartoons. So here's a clip from a video accompaniment to that article with mezzo-soprano Jamie Barton and Michael Heaston, artistic director for the Washington National Opera.
Bugs Bunny was really kind of the kernel of the start, I think, for me in a big way with opera music, period.
My first exposure to opera was actually Bugs Bunny, and thus it was my first exposure to Wagner. And so to be working on The Ring Cycle right now, I feel like my operatic life has finally come full circle.
So, from Saturday morning cartoons to Saturday nights at the Opera House, these singers and artistic directors have something in common, an inspiration which is perhaps not considered as highbrow as where they ended up. So when we heard this story, we got to thinking, first of all, to the opera singers listening right now, is it true for you, opera singers? Did Bugs Bunny have anything to do with it in your case? 212-433-WNYC. And who has any other lowbrow beginnings that led to highbrow endings? We want to open up the phones to ask you, all of you creatives, makers, artists, craftspeople, whoever, what lowbrow source inspired your highbrow future? What unlikely thing triggered your future passion or profession? Call in and tell us. 212-433-WNYC, 433-9692. too. Did your obsession with Legos as a 3-year-old make you want to be an architect? Anyone like that? Maybe in high school you loved to drink beer, much to your parents' dismay, and your love for Old English 40s eventually led you down a path to open an artisan brewery. Maybe your love of Playmobiles made you want to become a set designer. Maybe you now make documentary films because you were once obsessed with MTV's teen documentary series True Life. You know what I'm getting at? So opera singers, did Bugs Bunny have anything to do with it for you? And in that case, and who in another profession has a parallel story of kind of, you know, your lowbrow inspiration to your highbrow track? 212-433-WNYC, 433-9692. Did you love dressing up Barbie and now you're a fashion designer? 212-433-9692. We'll take your calls right after this.
It never happens at a good time. Only a momentous occasion, under the spotlight, when history demands you say just the right thing and you got nothing. On the next Snap Judgment, we proudly present A Loss for Words. Snap Judgment, storytelling with a beat. Do not miss it. Tonight at 9 on 93.9 WNYC.
WNYC is supported by the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. Jacques Lacombe leads Ravel's Daphnis and Chloe, and Joyce Yang in Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, June 9th through 12th in Englewood, Red Bank, and MJPAC. MJSymphony.org. The Charles H. Repson Foundation. Because a great city needs an informed and engaged public. More information at repsonfoundation.org.
WNYC. We are where you are. On air, online, and on the WNYC app.
Welcome to my shop. Let me cut your mop. Let me save your crop. Ding, diddly, ding, diddly. Hey. Don't look so perplexed. Why must you be next? Can't you see you're next? Yes, you're next. You're so next. How about a nice potion? Teach your whiskers to behave. Lots of ladder, lots of soap. This whole still don't be a dope. Now we're ready for the scraping. There's no use to try escaping. Yell and scream and rant and rave. It's no use, you need a shave.
Ooh, ouch, ouch, ooh, ouch, ooh, ouch.
Then you're nice and clean. Although your face looks like it might have gone through a machine.
It's Bugs Bunny in The Rabbit of Seville, based on Rossini's The Barber of Seville, as we now invite calls for the last few minutes of the show about what lowbrow source inspired your highbrow ambitions. Any other opera singers, like they documented from the Washington, the National Opera Company in D.C., actually inspired into opera by Bugs Bunny, as written up in the Wall Street Journal, or anyone else? Did your pet rock lead you down a career of geology, or any other example that you want to give? Sandy in Manhattan, you're on WNYC. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, when I was growing up in the 80s, this is long before Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you have to understand.
Okay.
There were trashy kung fu movies on Saturday afternoon, Black Belt Cinema. And I was obsessed with those because the choreography was so crazy, ridiculous, the sound effects, everything. And years later, I went to school actually for engineering, but I started to wander into the dance classes, and I told them I wanted to do kung fu choreography, and they had no idea what I was talking about. They almost threw me out. But I managed to stay in, and I became a professional dancer, and I toured around the world for 10 years with Momix and Palabalas, professional dance companies in New York City.
And do you feel that there is any kung fu influence in any of that?
Well, I kind of did what I was told to some degree, but since then I've done a lot of martial arts choreography, and actually even now I'm performing with a samurai sword fighting troupe called Samurai Sword Soul. So I'm still doing a little bit of where my roots came from, I guess.
Awesome. Sandy, thank you very much. Good start. Elizabeth in South Salem, you're on WNYC. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi. As a kid in the 1950s, Saturday morning movies always had a cartoon, and in my case, they were mostly Mighty Mouse because of the southern Indiana place where we went. And most of the Mighty Mouse cartoons had Brahms, Rhapsodies, and Hungarian dances as their soundtracks. And later, as I got more capable on my piano, I kept tracking down the scores so I could play them myself, so that I could be Mighty Mouse.
How about that? He was pretty operatic himself, right? Here I come to save the day, right?
That's right.
Elizabeth, thank you. Vernon on Staten Island, you're on WNYC. Hi, Vernon.
Hi, Brian. So before I started playing guitar, when I was a kid, I was really into science fiction. And the first sound I heard that really entranced me was Bernard Herrmann did the score to the science fiction film The Day the Earth Stood Still, and he used the theremin. And that was the first time I heard that. And when I heard Jimi Hendrix using feedback, the way he used feedback reminded me of the theremin from The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Didn't the Beach Boys use the theremin in Good Vibrations?
Good Vibrations. They use it in Good Vibrations.
Vernon, thank you very much. From the theremin to electric guitar, electronic guitar. Maura in Hoboken is an opera singer who wants to push back on this Bugs Bunny narrative. Is that right, Maura?
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, you're fine.
Okay. I wanted to say that I absolutely was not inspired by Bugs Bunny. In fact, as I'm older, I think in a way it sort of turns people or cheapens us. I hate to say that, but I guess I kind of had a highbrow childhood, and I listened to Maria Callas, and I was sold.
And so do you get annoyed by hearing all these people who were inspired into it as kids by Bugs Bunny?
It's in a way. I mean, I think there are two sides to it. I think you can bring people who have never heard of opera to opera, but in a weird way, it kind of does annoy me. But I'm open to argument.
Thank you very much. Beatrix in Manhattan, you're on WNYC. Hi, Beatrix.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So what was your lowbrow inspiration onto a highbrow track?
Yeah, so I grew up in somewhat of a junkyard as a child, and my dad collected cars and parts and junk, well, I deemed as junk, and it was just kind of thrown all over our property, and many antiques of different types, and it just always drove me completely nuts as a kid, and I was always attracted to very beautiful things, and spent a career in fashion, but then finally realized that it was time to branch out and become an organizer and style consultant. I really feel that changed my helped me form who I am today.
It was a backlash, really, to why you got ahead, right?
Somewhat, yeah.
If you had junk and it was thrown all over the place, then you got into style and organizing.
Yes. Yes.
That's one way to do it. Thank you very much. Stephen in Fairfield. Hi, Stephen. You're on WNYC.
Hi. How are you?
Okay. So your lowbrow inspiration to a highbrow track?
My lowbrow inspiration was the Dick Van Dyke Show. I thought I became a writer, and I thought that that's what writing would be. I thought three funny people would be in a room. They would just say funny things. One guy would lie on the sofa. Another person would write it down, and you were done. I thought it was the best thing in the world.
Not as lowbrow as television goes.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, Dick Van Dyke at the time was not as lowbrow as a lot of television was.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But it really stuck with me, and it's funny how I did end up becoming a writer.
So you became a serious writer, like do you write novels and serious stuff?
Well, I became more of an advertising writer, but of course I didn't, I didn't have that picture of like a lonely guy in a room. I had that picture of like, people influencing each other and saying funny things.
Gotcha. Mike in Somers, New York. You're on you say, I know it's in Upper Westchester there, near like, near Carramore and all of that. Is it Somers or Summers?
No, Somers.
Somers.
Right at the top of Westchester County below Brewster.
Yeah, gotcha. So?
Well, I was inspired by Gilligan's Island. Phil Sellers gets on as a guest star, and have the famous director Howard Hecuba, and he does a scene from, I think it's King Lear, Be a Neighbor, Laurel Enderby, Do Not Forget, Diana Death. And that started me
on
reading Shakespeare.
On Gilligan's Island.
Yes, it's a whole episode of Gilligan's Island. It's absolutely hysterical.
Thank you very much. And that started you reading Shakespeare. Tony on Staten Island. Hi, Tony. What you got?
Hi. In the 50s, I used to do the paint by number. If you remember.
Sure.
And I remember how the 7 blended with 23 and the merging of the oil colors. And it was very popular then in the early 50s. And I became a professional artist.
You did.
School is out, headed down the shore, have a ball once more.
But the merging, the oil paints, of the colors and how it excited me, how the two colors merged, and it stayed in my mind, and eventually I went into painting, and I saw a store in Smith Street, Brooklyn, and they sell all of these paintings by numbers. By the way, you can buy all the old 50s paint by number, that old series.
Really, and it reveals the lines and everything.
Yeah. It's people, they just handed them in and they sell them. But I went on to go into fine art, oil painting, watercolors.
Thank you so much. And there are your lowbrow inspirations to your highbrow tracks.
What have I done? I've killed a rabbit. Poor little bunny. Poor little rabbit.
WNYC support comes from Veteran Movers NYC, a New York City moving service founded in 2011 by a former Marine and organized by veterans of the armed forces. More information at veteranmoversnyc.com. WNYC is a media partner of Northside Festival, featuring Brian Wilson, Connor Oberst, and Casey Musgraves. You can win a pair of premium badges for all festival activities. Enter between now and 3 p.m. on June 3rd at wnyc.org/Northside.
It's been nearly 2 years since the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, ignited a police reform movement around the country. Today on The Takeaway, John Hockenberry talks with that city's new top cop, Chief Delrish Moss. Tune in at 3 o'clock this afternoon on 93.9 FM, WNYC.
This is WNYC, FM, HD, and AM, New York. Just keep listening.
Hi, I'm Leonard Lopate. On today's show, Barbara Boxer, who's retiring as a senator from California next January, talks about her life and her 40-year career in politics. And then chef and best-selling author Eddie Huang reveals how he found love, why that created tension within his family, and his quest to go to China to see how his food's set up there. Plus, Martin Lindstrom, an influential consultant on the importance of what he calls small data, our seemingly insignificant daily habits that prove invaluable to consumer research, and the story of how former American Congressman Bruce Morrison helped bring peace to Ireland. That's what's coming up after the news. This is WNYC, WNYC.org. Stick around.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The governor of California is endorsing Hillary Clinton for president a week before the state holds its primary. Governor Jerry Brown states in an online letter to California Democrats and independents that he believes supporting Clinton is the only way to prevent Republican Donald Trump from winning the election. Trump, meanwhile, says nearly all of the $6 million he raised for veterans groups is paid out. The GOP's presumptive presidential nominee said during a news conference in New York a short time ago that includes a donation from him.
On behalf of all of the folks that have worked hard on this and all of the people that have made contributions, including myself, I gave $1 million. But I just want to tell you that there are so many people that are so thankful for what we did.
Some veterans groups, meanwhile, were planning to stage a protest outside Trump Towers to complain that the candidate has used veterans as political props. In Iraq, anti-ISIS forces have evacuated 2 Yazidi girls during an offensive on Fallujah. NPR's Allison Muse reports international aid groups have expressed concern for tens of thousands of civilians who are trapped amid an offensive on the ISIS-held city.
An Iraqi major general says 2 Yazidi girls were rescued during Fallujah operations. Security forces and tribal fighters were combing an area seized from ISIS when they found the former captives. The girls say they were taken to Fallujah as slaves. Pro-government militias meanwhile claim the capture of an ISIS fighter who once bragged about the Yazidi sex slave trade in a video that went viral. A Yazidi member of Iraq's parliament tells NPR he's being investigated. ISIS captured thousands of Yazidis when it overran Mount Sinjar 2 years ago. The community fears they're among tens of thousands of civilians trapped in the group's strongholds in Iraq and Syria. Allison Muse, NPR News, Beirut.
Now on to the U.S. economy. Commerce Department reporting today that consumer spending rose last month at its fastest rate since 2009. NPR's Jim Zarroli reports a key measure of inflation also increased.
Spending rose by 1% in April, more than at any time in more than 6 years. Consumers spent considerably more on durable goods such as autos and appliances, but spending on other products was also up. The numbers suggest the economy has regained its footing after the weak first quarter of the year, and they appear to increase the odds that the Federal Reserve is about to raise interest rates. An inflation gauge that's often said to be followed by Fed officials indicates that core prices were up by more than 1.6% over the year before. That's an increase from earlier this year, but still below the 2% inflation rate Fed officials like to see. Jim Zarroli, NPR News, New York.
The Dow is down 83 points, nearly 0.5% at 17,789. This is NPR News.
And this is WNYC in New York at 12:04. Good afternoon. I'm Sirius Johnson. A Brooklyn rapper is being held without bail in connection with last week's fatal shooting at a popular Manhattan concert venue. Troy Ave, whose real name is Roland Collins, appeared in court in a wheelchair yesterday evening. A gunfire erupted Wednesday night in the green room at Irving Plaza just before the rapper T.I. was to perform. The defense says Collins was not responsible. Governor Cuomo says ethics reforms are a major priority for him, but with the state legislature ending its session for the year in a few weeks, expectations are low. Reporter Karen DeWitt has more.
Cuomo continues to push for ethics reform, a topic he dropped during budget talks. The governor released 8 different bills on closing the campaign finance loophole that exempts limited liability companies from donation limits. The most likely reform measure to become law is a proposal to cancel the pensions of elected officials convicted of a felony. The Assembly and Senate agreed to the concept last year, but they've yet to finalize specific language. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
The first skyscraper in Manhattan's Hudson Yards opens today. The 52-story tall commercial building at 10 Hudson Yards is now home to fashion retailer Coach, which plans to move 1,400 employees to the new office space over the next few weeks. Developers say they expect to spend more than $20 billion to fill 28 acres of new buildings with offices, shops, housing, and a school by 2025. And the Chancellor of New York's public university system says the next school year will be her last at the helm. Nancy Zimpher announced this morning her exit plan from the State University of New York system that she has led for 7 years. It's to be warmer but less humid today, getting up to around 87 degrees. Right now it's 81 degrees and sunny at 12:06.
Support for NPR comes from Visiting Angels, professional caregivers assisting adults in bathing, dressing, meals, and light housework nationwide. Visiting Angels, America's choice in senior home care. Office locations are at visitingangels.com.
You're listening to The Leonard Lopate Show on AM 820 and 93.9 WNYC.
Barbara Boxer has been a member of Congress since 1983 through 5 presidents, 2 major financial crises, 3 recessions, 5 wars, and upheavals in American politics that should keep historians scratching their heads for years. But those 34 years have also included the most significant social legislation in decades: Obamacare, major advances in rights for women and others, a transition of the U.S. from a rural to an urban country, and enormous technological developments. Senator Boxer has now written a memoir called The Art of Tough. Fearlessly Facing Politics and Life. It's published by Hachette, and I'm very pleased that it brings her back to our show. Welcome back.
Nice to be with you again.
Yeah, Vanessa, you'll be stepping down next January. That's over a year to go. Have you had any second thoughts along the way about considering what's been going on in the current election cycle?
You know, I've been a lucky person in the sense that I've always known what I wanted to do when. And when I left the House after 10 great years, I left, as I write in my book, because Newt Gingrich was really destroying it as a place I wanted to stay in. And I went for the gold, and I was basically an asterisk in the polls, and I got elected to the Senate, and I've served there, when I end, 24 years, and 40 years in all in elected life, from county supervisor to House member to Senate member. It just feels like the right time. I'm not leaving because I'm frustrated with it or anything like that.
You're not leaving because Mitch McConnell is now the equivalent of Newt Gingrich?
Well, he's not the equivalent of Newt Gingrich. That would be a long conversation. He's very different than Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich was the art of personal destruction, and Mitch just wants to move the country in a radical right direction. That's a different thing, and I think that debate is fine. But I don't want to be in a house that's run by someone who wants to destroy you personally. So in any event, I'm leaving because it's the right time. I intend to still work. I just won't be working from inside the United States Senate.
In hindsight, were there any signs in January 2015 to hint at how tumultuous this election has proven to be?
That is such a good question. I can't say that I predicted it, but looking at what's happening, I think you can follow the dots, because the Republicans for so long have been anti-immigrant. They've been anti-woman. They've been trying to criminalize abortion, overturn Roe v. Wade. They deny climate change. They marginalize people. And I could tell you, this is what's coming back to haunt them. They spoke all these things, and now they have a candidate that represents all these things.
You started representing California's 6th congressional district in 1983. What area did that district cover then?
It was San Francisco, a portion of San Francisco, about 25% of the city, and then all of Marin County, and then it also included parts of Vallejo, which was a military town. At that time, it was a Navy town.
So it was a wide range
of
political attitudes.
And it was great for me, for my development as a leader in politics, because I could see the differences and the diversity that we had in my district, reflective of the diversity of the state. We had the blue-collar workers and the white-collars, the environmentalists, the labor unions, and every color in the rainbow.
And now it would be all tech.
Say it again?
If you were there now, it would be all tech.
Well, actually, that's more south of where I was. But it was, when I started, a Republican area. And by the time I ran for Congress, it became bluer. And now California turned, literally, in my lifetime, for sure, from red to purple to blue.
What were the biggest political debates going on in Congress when you arrived?
The AIDS crisis had just started. I write about it in my book with a very heavy heart, because we had a president at the time, Ronald Reagan, who refused to say the word AIDS. And we had to push forward and talk about things that were so hard. You know, elected representatives don't think they're going to have to talk about using condoms. I mean, it was so embarrassing to me, but I had to get over it. And it wasn't until the Reagans lost their friend Rock Hudson that they started to say the word AIDS, and things changed. So that was raging when I took over. Also, there was a terrible recession, and we had to fight so hard for jobs. And we also had to fight Ronald Reagan because he wanted to do away with the National Endowment for the Arts that was doing so many wonderful things. And they kept showing, you know, quote-unquote, dirty photographs of different photographers.
Robert
Mapplethorpe was the main one, and what always amused me at the time is they kept saying, these are horrible, horrible. Go in, step outside, and in the hall we have pictures you can look at. So you had all these guys who were saying, oh, this is terrible, spending a lot of time looking at the photos.
Tip O'Neill once called Ronald Reagan the most ignorant man who had ever occupied the White House, but didn't he get along with him anyway?
Tip O'Neill, I have a big section about Tip in the book. I adored Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill, my book is The Art of Tough. His was the art of the personal relationship. And so Tip reached out to you regardless of whether he thought you were smart or not smart or whoever you were. And he was so enthusiastic and so warm and personable. And he taught us all that was really important. And he knew where everyone was coming from, including he knew where Reagan was coming from. He could find a way to get to them. For example, people forget, it was Ronald Reagan who said, okay, we have a lot of illegal immigrants here. If they do about 4 or 5 different things, let's make sure that they are legal. And we passed amnesty at that time. And, he understood that you had to raise the debt ceiling. We weren't going to default on our debt. And Ronald Reagan reinstated Social Security.